হেডফোন লোৱা নাই
হা হা
হেডফোন লোৱা নাই নেকি
হেডফোন লোৱা নাই
হেডফোনটো লওকচোন সাউন্ড কম বহুত
হেডফোনটো নাই হেৰি নাই নেকি মোৰ সাউন্ডটো নাই
সাউন্ডটো একদম কম
আনকি এনে দেখাও চাওঁচোন চাগে খুব চিঞৰিব লাগিব
গুড ইভিনিং
তাপস
স্যার
মোৰ ভয়েসটো এতিয়া তুমি ভালকে শুনিছানে ক্লিয়াৰ
আপোনাৰ ভয়েসটো অকমান কাটি আহিছে বুদুল স্যার
মোৰ
নহয় সাউন্ডটো কেনেকুৱা
না
সাউন্ডটো
বুদুল স্যারের অডিও ঠিক আছে
সাউন্ডটো কিমানখিনি পাইছা ক্লিয়াৰ
100% ক্লিয়ার আছে মই ক্লিয়ার পাইছো
নহয় লাউডটো কিমান লাউড
লাউডটো তো ঠিকই আছে স্যার
আৰু জোৰে ক'ব লাগিব নেকি
না ঠিক আছে
ঠিক আছে
পুলক স্যার ঠিকভাবে পাইছে বুদুল স্যারের সাউন্ডটো
এতিয়া পাইছানে
ঠিকে আছে
ঠিক আছে
তাপস এতিয়া কিমান পাইছা এতিয়া ক্লিয়াৰ
এতিয়া আগতকে আৰু অকমান বেছি পাইছো
মাইকটো এৰি দিলে তাৰমানে অলপ
কমি যায়
এতিয়া
ঠিক আছে
স্যার
অ
ইউটিউব প্ৰায় ৰেডি মই লিংকটো চাইছো ৰ'ব
ৰেখা বাইদেউ
মই মানে এইটো লগাই বেয়া পাওঁ
নহয় বেয়া পালে নহ'ব আজি লগাব লাগিব
খৰখৰা থাকে যে ৰ'ব তাই এটা আনি দিছে বেলেগ ৰুমত আছে আনিবলৈ গৈছে তাই ৰ'ব
সাউন্ডটো নহ'লে নহ'ব
মই বৰ বেয়া পাওঁ এইটো খৰখৰা থাকে যে একদম শুনা নাই নেকি মাতটো পুলকে উঠনি ক'লে যে শুনিছো
নহয় শুনিলে কি হ'ব আপুনি বহুত জোৰে ক'ব লাগে
জোৰেকে চিঞৰিব লগা হৈছে
প্ৰিন্সিপাল ছাৰ আহিলে
সঁচা আহিছে
Good afternoon, sir.
আৰম্ভ হ'লে নেকি
নাই স্যাৰ নাই আমি জাস্ট জয়েন কৰিছো
মই এনে টেষ্ট কৰি চাওঁ বুলি মইতো ৰেডি হোৱা নাই
হয় স্যাৰ
এনেকা শুনি আছে না মাতটো
শুনিছো স্যাৰ
হয় নেকি স্যাৰ দেখা শুনি আছে হেডফোন নলগালে হ'ব নেকি
হ'ব নেকি স্যাৰ
লগাব দিছে দেখোন এনেটো শুনিছো মাতটো
ইক হৈছে নেকি
নাই হোৱা নাই স্যাৰ
নাই হোৱা স্যাৰ
এই তেনে নলগাও হেডফোনটো বৰ অশান্তি লাগে তো
হ'ব
ঠিক আছে মই আছোই মানে এই মিউটেড থাকিম আৰু অলপ হা
স্যার
হ'ব স্যাৰ নিকলে আমি পুৰণা জামানা মানুহ যে হেডফোন লৈ ইয়াৰফোন লৈ বেয়া পাওঁ গম পালে
আচ্ছা বৰুৱা ছাৰক ক'লে না নাই
কলো লিংক দিলো ছাৰলে দিলো
বুদুল স্যার ঠিকে আছে ইউটিউবত
ঠিকে আছে মই চাই আছো
বুজাই পালে
ঠিক আছে ইউটিউবত চাই আছো বুজাই পালে ঠিক আছে ইউটিউবত
আহি আছে
বাইদেউ
আহি আছে
বাইদেউ আপোনাৰ লিংকটো আপোনাক মই দিয়া নাই ন ৰেখাবিতে নাই দিয়া মই দি দিছোঁ এক ছেকেণ্ড
নাই ৰেপকা খোলো অবলা
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ নিলে
মুদুল
স্যার
এটা ইমান ৰিপিট হৈ আছে ভয়েসটো কেলে এটা
স্যার মই ইউটিউবটো অন কৰাৰ কাৰণে মই অফ কৰি দিছো
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
ইউটিউবত চাই আছো
স্যার ভয়েস এটা অফ কৰি ৰাখিব লাগিব
ইউটিউবটো মিউট কৰি দিয়া কোনোবা জয়েন কৰিলে নেকি অলৰেডি বাহিৰৰ পাৰ্টিচিপেন্ট আছে নেকি কোনোবা
বেলেগ বাহিৰৰ নাই আমাৰ অসমৰে আৰু বাহিৰৰ নাই
স্যার ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলৰ আছে বাইদেউ ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল তাৰপিছত মিজোৰামৰ আছে
ঠিক আছে
পুলক
স্যার কওক
মই ইউটিউবটো চালো বন্ধ কৰি দিওঁ এতিয়া ইউটিউবটো বন্ধ কৰি দিওঁ
বন্ধ কৰি দিব
সিহঁতক জইন কৰিলে কৈ দিবা লগে লগে তাহাঁতক দি দিয়া সুমন আৰু হেৰি পিয়ালিক দি দিয়া
ঠিক আছে
অহৰে থাকে ন না মই নলগা হেল্ল'
ঠিকে আছে মা ক্লিয়াৰ
এই খৰখৰে আছে যে
পুলক মই ওলাইছো পুলক
কি পুৰা হৈ গৈছে ন
ঠিক আছে
ওলাইছা নমনিতা ওলাইছা
মোৰ মাতটো ওলাইছে নে
একদম পুৰা মোৰ ঠিকে আছে
আপোনাৰ মাতটো একদম ক্লিয়াৰ
হেডফোন লগাইছে যে
ৰেখা বাইদেউ
এতিয়া
মাইক্ৰফোনটো ওচৰত ল'ব মুখৰ ওচৰত ল'ব
মই কিন্তু বেলেগ মাইক্ৰফোন লোৱা নাই মই কম্পিউটাৰতে ক'লে আহিছে ন মাতটো পুলক
আহিছে বাইদেউ আহিছে
নৱনীতা ক্লিয়াৰ আছে
মোৰ হেডফোন নাই তাৰ মানে হেডফোন ল'ৰা আৰু ছোৱালীয়ে ক্লাছত লৈ আছে নাই মোৰ
ৰেখা বাইদেউ আপোনাৰ
শুনিছে?
কিন্তু সাউন্ডটো সবতকে লো
বাহ
মাইক্ৰফোনটো ল'ব মাইক্ৰফোনটো
শুনিছে?
মুখৰ আগত ল'ব
শুনিছে
না শুনাত শুনিছো কিন্তু লো আছে বহুত
আচ্ছা
মই একদম নতুন আজি তাজা হেডফোন লগাইছোতো
এনেকে লগাই ল'ম আৰু লাষ্টত গৈ নুশুনিব লাগিলে এনেকে লৈ ল'ম নাই দেখা
বাইদেউ মই এতিয়া এজেন্ডাখন লিখিছোহে ৰ'ব
নাই শুনা সিহঁতি নাই শুনা যে মোৰ মাতটো ক'লে
এইটো বেয়া তেন্তে এইটো আন্টি হয় আজনী চন্দি কৈছে
ৰেখা বাইদেউ মই ক্লিয়াৰলি শুনিছো আপোনাৰ মাতটো
শুনিছা ন এতিয়া
পুৰা ক্লিয়াৰ শুনি আছো মই অথনিও শুনি আছো
এতিয়া যদি মই জোৰকে চিঞৰো তেতিয়াহ'লে বহুত বেয়াহে শুনিব হয় নহয়
নিচিঞৰিব বাইদেউ চিঞৰিব ভাল ধুনীয়া হৈছে
এতিয়া শুনিছা নাই
এতিয়াও শুনিছো
তুমি তাতে লগাইছিলো না আছে
পুলক
এতিয়া শুনিছা
শুনিছো তো বাইদেউ
সেইটো থাকে ভাল নালাগে
আচ্ছা হেৰি
এনে শুনিছো মই ক্লিয়াৰ শুনিছো বাইদেউ
আচ্ছা দৰকাৰী কথা পাতো আমি
বাইদেউ ইয়াত হেৰি হৈ আছে তো ইউটিউবত লাইভ হৈ আছে
সেইটো নকৰিবা লাইভ
নকৰিলে কেনেকে হ'ব আকৌ
লাইভটো হৈ থাকিব বাইদেউ জইন কৰাৰ পিছত লাইভ হৈ থাকিব
তুমি যে ক'লা যেতিয়া নৱনীতা ষ্টাৰ্ট কৰিব তেতিয়াহে লাইভ হ'ব ক'লা যে
সেইটো ৰেকৰ্ডিং
ৰেকৰ্ডিং
আচ্ছা
এতিয়া লাইভ কি কৰোঁ এতিয়া
ছাৰ শুনি আছো কওক
লিংকটো কেইটা
ইউটিউব লিংক কাৰো ওচৰত নাই দিয়ক একো চিন্তা নাই ইউটিউব লিংক কাৰো ওচৰত নাই কোনো নেদেখে ইউটিউব
লিংকটো কেইটাত শ্বেয়াৰ কৰিবা পুলক
ছাৰ 6টা বজাৰ ভিতৰত কলেজৰ টিচাৰবিলাকক দিয়া হ'ব মানে ৰিচোৰ্চ পাৰ্চন সোমোৱাৰ পিছতে 6:10 মানত মানে গ্ৰুপ ষ্টুডেণ্টখিনিক দিয়া হ'ব তাৰপিছতে গ্ৰুপটোত দি দিয়ে 6:15 লাষ্ট আৰু
নহয় আমাৰ কলেজৰ তাৰমানে কি এতিয়া মানুহখিনি জইন কৰাৰ পিছত তুমি কোন আহিলে বা শুনিছোঁ আচ্ছা এই আমাৰ কলেজৰ ষ্টুডেণ্টখিনি তেতিয়া ধৰ টিচাৰখিনিক তুমি দিব পাৰা নেকি আমাৰ কলেজত কলেজত কিন্তু মানুহক দি দিয়ে নেকি আকৌ বেলেগকে
সেইটো কাৰণে ছাৰ
তো হেৰি 10 মিনিট থাকোঁতে 5:50 মানত আমাৰ কলেজত টিচাৰখিনিক দি দিয়া তাৰপাছত সেইখিনি ষ্টুডেণ্টখিনিকো আমি 6টাৰ ভিতৰত দি দিওঁ
ছাৰ ৰিচোৰ্চ পাৰ্চন জইন হোৱাৰ পাছত দিম বুলি ভাবিছোঁ
ঠিক আছে
আৰু ছাৰ এই হেৰিটো দি দিব আপুনি শ্বেয়াৰ কৰি দিব এখন ব্ৰচাৰখন
ব্ৰচাৰখন মই দি দিওঁ ন
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ
কি কৰিছা মই ফুলো তোমাৰ কোনো হেৰি নাই
কি ক'লে তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ
শুনিছানে
মাতটো শুনিছো মানুহজনী দেখা নাই
মই ভিডিঅ'টো অফ কৰি থৈছো
ভিডিঅ' অফ কৰি থৈছে
ভাইচ প্ৰিন্সিপাল ছাৰ আহিছে
হেল্ল' ছাৰ বৰুৱা ছাৰ দুলাল বৰুৱা ছাৰ
তাপস দা আছে নেকি তাপস দা ছাৰ ইউটিউবৰ চাবটিং অপশ্যনটো চাওকচোন এবাৰ মই দি চাইছো বাৰু লাইভ চেট অপশ্যনটো চাওক এবাৰ মেছেজ এটা দি দিয়ক
মোৰ কথা শুনিছা নেকি ব্লগ নিতা পাল বাইদেউ আহিছে মোৰ কথা শুনিছা নেকি
আছে না হেৰিটো ব্ৰাউজাৰটো ওলাই আছে
সেইটোৱে শ্বেয়াৰ কৰি থৈছোঁ নৱনীতা বাইদেউ কাট খাই গ'ল নেকি ৰেখা বাইদেউ নাইচোন নে আছে ৰ'ব
আছে চাগৈ মই
আছে, আছে।
মোৰো হেৰি
মই আছো
নৱনীতা বাইদেউ পোষ্ট ৰেখা বাইদেউকো কৰিছিলোঁ নহয় কি হ'ল এবাৰ কাট খাইছিলে নে ৰেখা বাইদেউ
মই কাটিছিলো নেকি নাই কটা
ঠিক আছে
কাটি গৈছিলে নেকি নাই কটাটো
ঠিক আছে হৈ গ'ল এতিয়া
মোক দিলা নে কো-হোষ্ট
দিয়া হ'ল আপুনি দেখা নাই
মই দেখা নাই মানে হেৰি স্ক্ৰীনটো ওলাই আছে যে মই একো উলিয়াব পৰা নাই এইটো দেখা নাই একো
হেল্ল' পুলক স্যাৰ লাইভ মেছেজটো আহিছে লাইভ মেছেজ পঠালো
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ আপুনি পাৰ্টিসিপেন্টছ মুখন মাৰক মাৰিলে আপুনি দেখা পাব আপোনাৰ নামৰ এগেইনষ্টত কো-হোষ্ট হোষ্ট এইবোৰ লিখা আছে আপুনি পাৰ্টিসিপেন্টছ মাৰক
ৰবা চালো
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ দেখাই পোৱা নাই বাৰ
মুখখন দেখিব লাগে মই হাজি কাছি ওলোৱা নাই যে মই দেখিলো 5:30 ৰাতি গৈছে দৌৰি দৌৰি আহিলো ৰেখামণিক ফোন কৰিলো ৰেখামণি ছোৱালীয়ে ফোন উঠালে তাৰপিছত পুলকক ফোন কৰিলো
বাইদেউ আমিও হাজি কাছি হোৱা নাই ভয়ে লাগিছে বাইদেউ বৰ বিৰাট টেনচন হৈছে পাই
কিনো টেনচন হ'বলৈ আছে এইটো চাবাচোন ইমান ধুনীয়াকে হৈ যাব
বাইদেউ নেট টেষ্টে প্ৰব্লেম নকৰিলে হয় আৰু সেইটোৱে আৰু ভাই সাৰে
নেটটো কেতিয়াবা নহয় আৰম্ভ হৈ গ'লে যে এইটো চলি থাকিব আমাৰ কেতিয়াবা আমাৰ কাট খাই যায় কিন্তু মিটিংটো চলি থাকিব কিন্তু এইটো চিন্তা কৰিব নালাগে চলি থাকিব মিটিংটো আৰু মেইনটো হোষ্ট হেৰিয়ে না পুলক আছে না চলাই হেৰিবিলাক যে যাৰ যেতিয়া হেৰি আছে তেওঁলোকক ধুনীয়াকে এইটো কৰি দিলেই হৈ যাব
অভ্যাস নহয় যে মোৰ আৰু মই ইমান হেৰি কৰা মানুহ নহয় যে ইমান টেকনিক্যালি সাউন্ড নহয় যে
এইটো কাৰণ অভ্যাস আছে এইটো সবৰে তেনেকুৱা
নৱনীতা
বাইদেউ কক
হেৰিত কেটাত গ্ৰুপত কেটাত দিবা লিংকটো
মই নিদু পুলকে দিব মই পুলকক কৈছো কাৰণ নিতা বাইদেউ সোমোৱাৰ পিছতহে দিব পুলকে গম পাব বাইদেউ
নিতা বাইদেউ সোমোৱাৰ পিছত বাইদেউ আগতে সোমাই ল'ব ন
মই পুলকে কাৰণ কৈছো তুমি পুলকে মোক দিব কৈছিলে মই কৈছো মইতো গম নাপাম নিতা বাইদেউ কেতিয়া সোমাইছে তুমি দি দিবা গ্ৰুপত তাতকে
বাইদেউ 6টা বজাত পজিটিভলি সোমাব
নিতা পাল আহিলে মই জয়েন কৰিলে তো কি কৰি আছে তহঁতি লেকচাৰ মাৰি আছে
নহয় স্যাৰ ৰিসোৰ্স পাৰসন
সেই গৰাকী নিতা বাইদেউ আচ্ছা মই নিতা পাল বুলি ভাবি নিতা পালটো আহিল নিতা বাইদেউ কৈ নাথাকিব আহে
সৰি স্যাৰ আমাৰ ৰিসোৰ্স পাৰসন
ক'লে হ'ল
ওকে স্যাৰ স্যাৰ আশীৰ্বাদ কৰিব দেই দূৰৰ পৰা
ঠিক আছে দিয়ে ওলাইছো আশীৰ্বাদ কৰিবলৈ নাই মানে আটাইতকে মানে নৱনীতাৰ কথা কৈ থাকিলে মানুহে তাইক চাই থাকোতে যাব বাকী একোৱে নহব এতিয়া কথা
স্যাৰ সঁচাকে ভয় লাগিছে বিৰাট ভয় লাগিছে কিবা টেকনিক্যালি মানে কি হ'ব নাজানো যে
টেকনিক্যালি একো তাত কিডাল হ'ব কথাহে ক'ব লাগে কথাটোত আকৌ কি টেকনিক ডাল
এনেকে কথাও দাস
এতিয়া কিন্তু ইউটিউবত লাইভ ষ্ট্ৰীমিং হৈ আছে
বন্ধ কৰ কিছু কথা বন্ধ কৰ ন
নহয় ইউটিউবৰ লিংকটো নাই নহয় কাৰো ওচৰত কোনো দেখা নাপায়
নহয় আৰে ইউটিউবত তুমিয়ে লিংকটো দিয়া নাই
ৰেকৰ্ড নকৰিব
না স্যাৰ ইউটিউবত অটোমেটিক্যালি থাকি যাব ফ্ৰম বিগিনিং থাকি যাব
ৰেকৰ্ডিংটো থাকি যাব ইউটিউবত গোটেইখিনি
ওকে আচ্ছা
নহলে এইটো মই বেয়া কথা পুলক হেল্ল' পুলক মই অলপ ওলাই দিছো মই অলপ পিছত জইন কৰিম বহুত দেৰি আছে আধা ঘণ্টা আছে
নহয় স্যাৰ অলপ মানে 100 হৈ গ'লে দিগদাৰ হৈ যাব নেকি 5টা মান ৰখাই থম হ'ব স্যাৰ
তো মোকো খেদিলে মই কেনেকৈ ভাষণটো কেনেকৈ দিম হেৰ ওপৰত
নহয় নহয় 6টা দেৰিকে সোমালে 6:10 মানত ছাৰ সোমাই দিব
নহয় নেকি মই অকণমান এৰিছোঁ মুঠতে মই
ঠিক আছে
সোমাম বাৰু
মই ইউটিউবৰ লিংকটো দিম চাবা পিছত এতিয়া দিম এতিয়া নতুন কাৰো ওচৰত কোনটো নাই চাব পাৰি ইউটিউবত চাব পাৰি পিছত চালে চাব পাৰি ইউটিউবত লাৰি দিলে গম পাবা তুমি নালাগে মই মানে নাই মোৰ টাইমে
বাইদেউ হেল্ল' ৰিচোৰ্চ পাৰ্চনক ফোন কৰিলে ভাল হ'ব নেকি 6টা বাজিলেতো
হা আমি আমরা কোন থাকি এখন হয়তো ফোন চলালে এটা সামনে নয় না ফ্যান কেন আলো ধরে করে নেট আছে কেমনে ব্যস্ত যাও মানুষকে দাও থাকিব লাগিব বনাও তো খানা অলপ পিছত যাম ৰবা কাৰণ আহিব পাৰে না খানাও বনাব নিদিয়া কিচেন কন্ডিশন কি হবে তুমি খানাও বনাব নিদিয়া পুরো
বাইদেউ জইন কৰিলে দেই ৰেখা বাইদেউ
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm audible. Okay, so I just want to show my screen. Please see this.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
You can see it?
No, ma'am. No.
Oh, no. Okay, okay.
Screen share to
Budul sir. Just wait, ma'am.
Nita Badu, good evening.
Good evening, Namonita. How are you?
Baidew asu diok aru.
আজি বৰ গৰম।
বিৰাট গৰম, বাইদেউ বিৰাট গৰম।
বাইদেউ এটা ট্ৰাই কৰক।
দেখিছো।
এতিয়া দেখিছা ন?
দেখিছো।
স্যার কওক।
মই স্টপ শেয়ার কৰিব লাগে নেকি?
কৰি দিও।
স্টপ কৰি দিম। স্টপ কৰি দিছো।
দেখিছা ন?
দেখিছো বাইদেউ, দেখিছো। ফুল স্ক্রিন দেখিছো বাইদেউ।
ওকে।
বাইদেউ এইখিনি হলে আৰু স্ক্রিনখন শেয়ার কৰি থম বলক।
বলক এতিয়া এইটো বস্তু মই স্টপ শেয়ার কৰি দিম নে?
বাইদেউ এতিয়া স্টপ কৰিব পাৰে।
কলেজতো কেইটা বজাত আছে?
কওক।
90 হৈছে
Now other co-hosts are requested not to handle the entry of participants.
Okay.
Dr. Tanushree Sarkar will handle the entry and exit of participant. Dr. Tanushree Sarkar, you please respond. Other co-hosts are requested not to handle participant.
Okay, okay. Aru kono jate nokore. Thik ase. ঠিক আছে মই এই তিনজন আছে মই কেনে ভৰাই দিছো 93 ক মই পুলকো কলো YouTube টো দিবলে লিংক টো দিবলে হি দিয়া নাই এতিয়ালৈকে
মই টিচাৰবোৰ সব নাহিলে যে ইউটিউবত যাব নেকি
ইউটিউবত যাব তেতে হলে 93 হৈ গৈছে কিন্তু মই আৰু নিদিও হা
92 93 স্যার আহিলে ন প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার আছে
স্যার আহিলে
দুলাল বড় আছে
দুলাল আসিলে তো আগৰ পৰা আসিলে
তাপসটো আছে
আছো
আছো চাই লব হা তাপস
আছো হেল্ল' আছো মই
আৰু সুৰভি আৰু সুমন আহিলে
সুৰভি আহিলে সুমনক দেখা নাই মই
সুৰভি
আহিলে
ৰাগিনী অহা নাই ন
ৰাগিনী নাই অহা
ইয়াত কিজানি মানে অলপ থাকিলে ভাল আছিল আৰু ইয়াত
91 হেৰি হৈ আছে মই দিয়া নাই এতিয়ালৈকে পিছত দেখা যাব
বাইদেউ এটা মেছেজ লিখি পেলাই যে ইউটিউব বাকিখিনি পাৰ্টিচিপেণ্টক ইউটিউবত জইন কৰিবৰ কাৰণে হোৱাটছএপ গ্ৰুপত লিখি দিয়ক আৰু ইউটিউব লিংকটো দি দিয়ক
পুলকে দিব পুলকে
অলৰেডি গিভেন
দিলে ন ইউটিউবৰটো
দিলে হেৰি কৰি দিয়া এটা নোট এটা দি দিব লাগিব তাত মামনিতা লিখি আছে
অনুষ্ঠিত দিয়ক
কোৱা
88 হৈছে আৰু তিনজন মান বাকি আছে আপুনি দিব পাৰে নেকি
মানে কি এক্সিট হৈ গ'ল তো কাৰোবাৰ হেৰিটো আমি হেৰি হৈ যায় যে কাট খাই যায় যে এইটো কাৰণে এনে 90 হৈ গৈছে 91 আছিলে এনে হয় মই দুজন মান নাম ভৰাই দিছো হেল্ল' কোৱা ক'ত উলিয়াই দিছো তুমি নিজে নিজে সব কাট খাই গৈছা মই উলিয়াই দিয়া নাই নহয় উলিয়াব নোৱাৰো নহয়
জানে কুটু খুলি দিবি
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ
হেল্ল'
ইউটিউবটো আপুনি দেখিছে নেকি চাইছে নেকি
নাই চোৱা এতিয়ালৈকে শুনাচোন তোমালোকৰ ষ্টুডেণ্ট গ্ৰুপত এটা মেছেজ দি দিয়াচোন ইউটিউবত জইন কৰিবলৈ ছোৱালীখিনি বাহিৰত ৰৈ আছে ঠিক আছে মানে আমি 90 এডমিট কৰিলেতো 10 পিপল গোটেইখিনি তোমালোকৰ ছোৱালী ডিপাৰ্টমেণ্টৰ
মোৰ মোবাইলটোত মাইনাই ক্লাছ কৰিছে আজি নৱনীতা
বাইদেউ কওকচোন কওক বাইদেউ
তুমি আমাৰ গ্ৰুপ বিলাকত তাহাঁতি মানে ইউটিউবত জইন কৰা নাই বাহিৰত
ইউটিউবত জইন
ইউটিউবত জইন কৰিব কৈ দিয়া আমাৰ ষ্টুডেণ্ট বিলাকক
কোনখিনি ৱেইট কৰি আছে মই দেখি আছো
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ
হেল্ল'
তনুশ্ৰী বাইদেউ 95 লৈকে আপুনি কন্ট্ৰলত ৰাখিব পাৰে 95 লৈকে দি
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে মই চাই লওঁ আমাৰ টিচাৰ আৰু কোনোবা আহে নেকি ইয়াতে ষ্টুডেণ্টছখিনি সব ৰৈ আছে দেখি আছো
আমাৰ টিচাৰ গগন তালুকদাৰ ৰেখামন ৰাগিনী মল্লিক এওঁলোকে জইন কৰিছে ইউটিউবত
জইন কৰিছে নে
ইউটিউবত 71 জইন কৰিলে ৰেখা বাইদেউ
হেল্ল'
ঠিক 6:30 বজাৰ লগে লগে আৰম্ভ কৰি দিব ঠিক 6:30 বজাৰ লগে লগে আৰম্ভ কৰি দিব
হেল্ল' না না জুমে
নৱনীতা
বাইদেউ কওক
কিমান দেৰি আছে আৰু চোৱাচোন নহয়তো
মই নাজানো নহয় মোৰ ভৰিৰ টাইমবোৰ ছোৱালী ডিপিএছৰ লগত মিলাই থৈ দিয়ে বাইদেউ
পজিটিভলি 6:30 মেম এতিয়া 6:23
এবাৰ ছাৰক সোধাচোন যদি আৰম্ভ কৰিব লাগে কৰিম
নহয় এতিয়া তোমাৰ 23 হৈছে নৱনীতা
বাইদেউ
আৰু 5 মিনিট 23 হৈছে আৰু 7 মিনিট আছে আৰু 2 মিনিটৰ পিছত ছাৰক মাতিম ন মেমক মাতিম
আছে কিন্তু স্যার মেসেজ দিছে স্যার আছে আমার প্রিন্সিপাল স্যার আছে তে মেসেজ দিছে নয় মাত্র
টকাটো আছে নহয় 5 মিনিট আগত হাজিৰ হৈ যাব লাগিব ন
স্যারে খালি ভিডিওটো অন কৰিলে হ'ল স্যার আছে
অপলক
Yes, ma'am.
অপলক
কক বাইদেউ
হাজিৰ হ'ব হৈছে আৰু 5 মিনিট আছে
ঠিক আছে বাইদেউ
তোমাৰ ইউটিউবত হৈ আছে
ইয়াৰ পৰা সব ঠিক আছে বাইদেউ যেতিয়া আৰম্ভ হয় ৰেকৰ্ডটো আৰম্ভ কৰিম
তুমি কৈ দিবা ওকে বুলি তুমি আৰম্ভ হোৱাৰ পিছতো তুমি ভৰাই এন্ট্ৰি কৰি থাকিব লাগিব ন তুমি হৈ থাকিব ন তেতিয়ালৈকে হেল্ল' ছাৰ
শুনি আছো
আৰু 5 মিনিট আছে
চিন্তা নকৰা বহি থাকা তুমি য'তে আছা এইটো সময়ত আৰম্ভ হৈ যাব ৰিলেক্স এণ্ড টেক ইট ইজি ওকে চবে শুনি আছে নহয় তোমাৰ ভয় থাকে
We welcome all participants The webinar will start positively at 6:30 p.m. Please wait.
Hello, Budul. Dr. Budul Das.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
Clear as an supposed to as an?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Can you hear me loud and clear? Loud and clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Das, am I audible? More mattu ahisene?
Clear, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Minute ase aro.
Yes, sir.
Monica? Monica?
বাইদেউ মই আছো
এবাৰ মেমক মাতা আছে মেম
মই বাইদেউ দেখিছো বাইদেউ কথা পাতিছো
সময় হৈ গৈছে কিন্তু
স্ক্ৰীন শ্বেয়াৰ কৰিলেহে কম স্ক্ৰীনখন দেখুৱা উলিয়ালে
Screen is on. We may start now.
Okay. Sir, আৰম্ভ কৰিম নিতা বাইদেউ আৰম্ভ কৰো
নিশ্চয়
Namaskar. Good evening, everyone. I, Nobonita Deka, on behalf of the Department of Education, Women's College Tinsukia, and also on behalf of the entire Women's College Tinsukia family, welcome you all to this one-day national webinar on impact of COVID-19 on the psychosocial well-being of teachers and students. This webinar has been organized by the Department of Education in collaboration with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college. I feel very happy to share with you all that under the dynamic leadership of our respected principal, sir, Dr. Rajiv Bordoloi, our college decided to organize a series of webinars keeping in mind the benefit of the teacher and students, especially for the benefit of the students during this terribly frightening COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown situation. As we all know that the sudden outbreak of COVID-19 is not only an extraordinary global public health crisis, but also a danger to the psychosocial well-being across the communities. So far as the teacher and students are concerned, it has given a big jerk in our life and in our activities. Our being quarantined in home might have inflicted much more psychosocial injuries than the physical injuries caused by coronavirus. Our student communities has been hit the hardest by this situation. All of a sudden, their teaching learning mode has become virtual, for which they were not at all prepared. No college, no outdoor activities, their aberrant dietary and their sleeping habits disrupted their usual lifestyle and potentially promoted monotony, dullness, distress, and too many other neuropsychiatric manifestations. Similar is the case with the teachers also. All of a sudden, teacher had to adjust, trained and geared themselves up with the new virtual mode of teaching for which they were not at all prepared. They all the time under a constant stress how to upskill themselves for this virtual mode of teaching. Most of the teachers are all the time under a lot of stress, wondering if the colleges will reopen as per schedule for the next semester, because our new CBCS curriculum continues to be rolled out. Teachers, they themselves grappled with their own uncertainties and fear, but they need to support their students also, because we, the teacher, cannot leave our student in this situation, because our students are deeply concerned with their potential disruption in their future, in their examination, in their teaching learning activities. So on the whole, we can say that this COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown situation has created not only the physical problems, but also psychosocial problems, because psychosocial problems are much more dangerous than the physical problems. So these psychosocial problems need to be taken care of properly. In view of this prevailing situation, under the guidance of Dr. Rajiv Bordoloi, the Department of Education has chosen this topic to organize this webinar today by inviting a renowned resource person specialized in this field, who will throw light on different aspects of the topic which we have chosen for the webinar. This webinar will provide an opportunity to all our participants to take part freely and get a solution to their problems caused by the situation. Hope our webinar will be able to fulfill this objective and will be liked by all. Now, I will move to the next agenda. I would like to request our respected principal, Dr. Rajiv Bordoloi, to address our participants and formally inaugurate our webinar. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nobonita Deka. And my dear Vice Principal, Honorable Vice Principal of this institution, Mr. Dulal Borua, HOD of Education Department, Host Department, Ekharani Borua, and other faculty members of the department, Coordinator of IQAC, Dr. Gudul Das, and especially today's invited speaker, a renowned professor of Dibrugarh University, Professor Nita Kolita Borua ma'am, my dear student participants of this institution, and maybe there are participants from other institutions also, student participants, and respected teacher participants from our institution, from other institutions within Assam and other institutions outside Assam, those who have taken time to be a part of this program. A very good evening to all of you and welcome to this webinar. As Dr. Deka has quite rightly said, it is a very relevant topic in view of the time and situation that has been prevailing for the last 6 months or so. COVID-19, I must say, it is the most talked about term perhaps in the history of the world. Never before, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but never before a single term has been talked about and discussed all over the world at the same time. Because it is a disease, it's not a good term to talk about, but it is a disease which is attacking the entire world population. It is like a dark cloud which is looming large all over the world at the same time and almost threatening to decimate the entire human race. The worst part is that despite all the development in science and technology and medical science, we don't have any sort of medicine against any virus, and it is a disease caused by a virus. Another thing is that for some viruses we have vaccinations, but unfortunately this is a new enemy. This is an enemy which came from unknown territory, so we don't know the exact characteristics of this. So we do not have any vaccine also to protect ourselves from this enemy. So in view of this, I mean, this and combining with the thing that the governments, world governments all over the world, different governments all over the world, they were actually simply unable to cope with this menace of COVID-19. And as a result, since they do not have any medicine for that, since they are ill prepared, if you can think of India, we spend crores of rupees. We spend thousands of crores of rupees in erecting statues, skyrocketing statues, 3,000, 4,000 crores we do not bother to spend. But our medical science is worst treated and worst developed in comparison to other aspects of our life. So combining all these things, the government of India, like many other governments in the world, they have totally failed to address this menace, to address this situation, to ensure safeguard of common people. Now, as an individual, anybody, I mean, teacher and student and common people, as an individual, it has caused multiple problems to us. It is, as Dr. Deka has rightly said, apart from physical damage, it has been causing severe mental trauma, mental damage to our psychological or mental health. We don't know what is coming. We don't know what is coming to attack us. And the worst part is that it is threatening to take our near and dear ones away forever from us. That, combining with the government imposed various lockdowns and various restrictions and various constraints to our normal behavior for the last 6 months or so, has been causing immense distress in all of us. To be very honest, I believe that our teachers community, like many other service holders, they are better put in this situation because they are getting at least financial some sort of financial assurance from the government even in during this period. But you think of those common people, you think of those daily wages laborers, you think of those small business groups, small business owners, you think of those farmers, their livelihood has come to a standstill. All the avenues have been closed. And you just imagine what mental trauma they have been going through. And being students, being child of those families, the students, you think of those students, what has been going through their minds. So it's a very important topic, time-relevant topic that the department has chosen. So I'm congratulating the department for that. And the best part is that you have decided to invite revered Professor Professor Kolita, Nita Kolita Burwa, who is an expert in this field. So I am sure that listening to her for 1.5 hours or so will be immensely beneficial for all the participants. It will be definitely beneficial for me too. As a person also, I'm a very senior person. I have lots of experience behind me, but this menace of COVID-19 has damaged my mental health to a great extent, I must admit. So like me, many other people, maybe they will not like to admit, but it has been causing immense distress to all of us. So I welcome you all again. Let me not assume the role of an expert. Let me leave it for our honorable professor, invited speaker. So with these few words, I welcome you again. I congratulate you on your decision to be a part of this program. Our department, education department, is one of the premier departments of the college. All the faculties are very smart and highly dedicated to the cause of the service of the students. Our students are also very brilliant. The only problem these days is that we have not been able to call them to our class and colleges to teach them in our classrooms. But I am sure the things will change because news of new vaccines are coming from other parts of the world, and it is a matter of time only that it will become available for each and every one of us. So till then, I would request all my students and definitely our teachers also to remain elusive from the COVID virus. You please follow all the protocols that should be followed in regards with this COVID virus and remain elusive because good days are coming and we have to survive for that. So with these few words, let me wind up by declaring this program as inaugurated. Thanks to all of you again, and over to you, Dr. Nobonita Deka. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you once again. Thank you very much for your encouraging words, sir. Now, I would like to request Mrs. Rekhamoni Borua, Coordinator, HOD, Department of Education, Women's College, Tinsukia, to say a few lines addressing our participants. Rekhamoni Baidu.
Thank you, Nobonita. Am I audible, Nobonita?
Yes. Very much audible, Baidu.
Thank you. Good evening to one and all present here. Respected resource person, Dr. Nita Kolita Borua, respected principal of our college, Dr. Rajiv Bordoloi, Vice Principal, Mr. Dulal Borua, IQAC coordinator of our college, Dr. Budul Sanda Das, all the teachers and my dear students. I am Rekhamani Borua, head of the Department of Education, Women's College, Tinsukia. On behalf of the organizing committee, I welcome you all for today's national webinar organized by the Department of Education in collaboration with IQAC of Women's College, Tinsukia, on the topic, Impact of COVID-19 on the psychosocial well-being of teachers and students. Due to corona pandemic, the whole country has locked down itself. All the students and teachers are bound to stay at home from the mid of March. Both the teachers and students have been suffering from anxiety, depression, mental stress during this period. This problem can lead to serious health and emotional problems in future, mainly of students. For the students, psychosocial readiness by setting up mental organization is most necessary in the present challenging situation. So we have decided to arrange the webinar especially for the benefit of students to make their mental condition strong. For this purpose, Dr. Nita Kolita Borua, Professor, the Department of Education, Dibrugarh University, is invited as resource person to deliver her valuable speech on this topic. My hearty welcome to Nita ma'am as resource person for today's webinar. I welcome our principal sir who is present here as our guide and mentor. I also welcome our vice principal sir and IQAC coordinator who are our big support to organize this webinar. Again, my heartiest welcome to all my dear participants, both the teachers and students for today's session. Nita ma'am, our respected resource person. Her presentation is always very informative, delightful, and inspirable. Hope all the participants will enjoy the session very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rekhamani Baidio. Now the time to introduce our resource person of this webinar. She is none other than Dr. Nita Borua Kolita, a renowned educationist, well-known educationist of Dibrugarh University. I feel honored to introduce Nita Baidio as a resource person of today's webinar. Let me read out a brief biodata of our resource person. Dr. Mrs. Nita Kolita Borua is presently working as a professor in the Department of Education, Dibrugarh University, and is also serving as the chairperson of the Center for Studies in Applied Psychology of the university. She has over 30 years of teaching experience, having joined in the Department of Education of Dibrugarh University as a lecturer on the 4th of September 1989, immediately after completing her MA in Education as a gold medalist from Guwahati University in August 1989. She continued her services there till the date of her permanent appointment in the Department of Education of Dibrugarh University on the 7th February 1991. Professor Nita Kolita Borua has done her PhD research on the topic Development of Education in the erstwhile province of Assam since Diarchy 1921 to 1947 under the guidance of Professor Sheila Bora and was awarded the degree in February 2006. Since 2008, she has been supervising PhD research in the Department of Education of the university, and till date, 7 scholars have received their PhD degrees under her guidance. 7 more scholars are presently at various stages of research under her supervision. Her areas of interest include adolescence and adolescent education, mental health issues in education, education and development. She has presented research paper in various regional, national, and international seminars and has over 29 publications in reputed national and international journals and edited books. She has also acted as a resource person in various faculty development programs conducted by different universities and colleges on areas like understanding the relevance of student psychology, constructivism as a pedagogy in higher education, quality improvement in higher education, preparation of a quality question paper for higher education, etc. She is presently actively involved in the administrative activities of Dibrugarh University as a member of various academic and administrative committee of the university, besides being a PhD examiner in education and psychology of several Indian universities. She is also a life member of various educational and research organizations of the country. This is a biodata. This all about her academic and professional life. But besides being a very renowned educationist, she has, I would like to add another thing. She is also a very good, very affectionate, very successful mother, because I know her personally. She has brought up both her kids so successfully, so nicely, that both of them are well established in their respective fields. I wish both of them a very bright future ahead. Now, before handing over the platform to Nita Baidio, I would like to share a few important things with our participants. I would like to share with them that besides Zoom, we are streaming the proceeding of this webinar in YouTube also. So those who are unable to avail this Zoom platform can watch or attend this webinar in YouTube also. And after listening to ma'am's presentation, please, I request them to put their questions in the chat box of YouTube as well as in Zoom. Their questions will be picked up at the end of the presentation during question answer session and will be answered by our resource person. So now over to Nita Baidio. So we are eagerly waiting to listen to your presentation. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Navanita. Good evening, everybody. Respected Principal, Dr. Bordaloy, Head of the Department of Education, Rekamoni Burwa, my ex-student, Dr. Navanita Deka, a research scholar of our department, Ulak Bhattacharjee, another one of my students, teachers of Tinsukia Women's College, and participants who are present here. It's a pleasure to be here today evening, although it's very hot and really very humid and very uncomfortable. But I'm very glad to be sharing with you a presentation on a topic which is really, like Dr. Bordaloy said, very relevant, especially in the context of the present situation we are in. So, without saying too much, I would like to go into my presentation, which I hope will address all your concerns. And if you have any doubts or if you have any questions, like Dr. Deka said, you can put it up in your chat box and I will try to deal with it towards the end. So with the blessings of my late parents, my teachers, and everyone and every incident in my life which has enriched me as a person, I would like to begin this presentation. So, the topic for today's webinar, as you are all aware, is psychosocial well-being concerns during the COVID-19 pandemic. Psychosocial well-being is also related to psychosocial development. Before starting my presentation, I would like to just briefly give you a background of how psychologists have defined psychosocial development. A very famous psychologist, one of my favorite psychologists, Erik Erikson, had specially said that the entire human life, the entire span of a human life, human beings pass through several different stages of psychosocial development. And the most prominent stages of development, the first 5 stages are from the time of birth till the years of being a teenager. 5 stages are there. And these are stages where basically, according to him, we face certain conflicts. And how we solve that conflict helps us to develop our confidence and our psychosocial well-being to move on to the next stage in a more confident and more balanced manner. So this whole theory covers the entire human lifespan from birth till death. And so therefore, I was very happy when this topic was suggested to me. So without much ado, I would like to move on. So I hope the presentation is visible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just a moment, it's not working, huh? Let me try. Okay. Okay. So like Dr. Bordelot said, every one of us is very aware of the psychological impact that the COVID-19 lockdown has had on us. But along with COVID-19, I have also begun to notice over the last few months that not only the fear of contracting COVID, this 21st century also seems to have introduced us to an emerging pandemic of mental illnesses, especially if you notice the number of sensational suicides and deaths, unnatural deaths, or unnatural activities that have taken place during this period of lockdown and beyond. Every one of us is aware of Sushant Singh Rajput. Beyond that, also almost every 2 or 3 days, we find that there are certain cases in the news which shock us because of the fact that you think that how can people do such things? But basically what I'm trying to say is that this 21st century, along with all the science and technology progression, has also made us realize that there is an emerging pandemic, not only of COVID-19, but in the future of more prominent mental illnesses. And it's very important, therefore, that awareness programs along with psychological interventions should be addressed. And I'm very glad that Tinsukia Women's College has taken a step forward in introducing sort of an awareness or sensitization process towards the psychosocial well-being of people in today's world. So like Dr. Bordelot said, that psychosocial issues are there, and in different social strata, the psychosocial issues are different. So for the COVID-19 patients and quarantined individuals, their issues are loneliness, anxiety, panic, stress, depression. People who are attached to them, their family members, or the neighboring community who is also quarantined. For them, it is fear also. So for them, the psychosocial issues are like that. For children, it is what I have noticed in my neighborhood, that there is a lot of boredom. They are very bored about the fact that they can't go to school, meet their friends, go out and play. Moreover, there is a pressure and stress on them relating to their educational development. The pressure of staying inside all the time is creating irritability in them. And there are lots of developmental issues, like I have said that one important psychosocial issue is there also, because at this age, different children have different needs. And if those needs are not fulfilled, then their developments will not take place in the right direction. And more or less, moreover, there is always the constant fear of infection. For the marginalized community, the disadvantaged communities of our societies, there is depression, there is stress, depression because of the fact that there is a lack of economic opportunities, stress on financial resources, financial insecurity. There is a stigma of discrimination. We have, I think we can all remember the visuals we saw of the migrant laborers, how they travel from their place of work back home, and the increasing health crimes that are happening amongst the marginalized community who are very much neglected, especially with regards to the health. For the old age people, again, we have special psychosocial issues like fear, anxiety. Not only are they worried, their near and dear ones are extremely anxious. They are constantly living in fear that their parents or their loved ones who are senior citizens may be very vulnerable towards this infection, and hence constant there is a fear, anxiety. There is this constant stress on the mind leads to cognitive decline. It will lead to certain real-time problems like their regular scheduled checkups may have to be postponed or delayed due to the COVID-19 situation. There is also difficulties, I know, in accessing medicines also. And also there is the problem for especially the people who are already vulnerable, the psychiatric people, because their routine follow-up is affected, addiction is increasing, violence in our society has also really increased over the past few months. So generally, therefore, we see in different sections of society, there are psychosocial issues, and the psychosocial issues in different strata of society are different. For our college students, what is the difference? The difference is that here, the college students are at a time when they have problems, but which are not the same as the sections of society that I mentioned just now. Their financial security may not have been threatened so much now, but their safety has been threatened, and also the fact about their career security. But what they will do after this? Many of us, our students were planning to go to different universities in different states, maybe even outside the country, but everything has now been threatened and challenged, and therefore now they are in a vacuum, and just at a time when they were ready to launch themselves, now they are unsure about where to go, how to go, whether they'll really be able to go there, when this situation will normalize, so-called normal. And moreover, there is also the peer pressure of online learning, because we find that in the case of online learning, uh, they are there is a lot of peer pressure regarding gadgets. So someone might have a laptop, someone might not, someone might be having an Android phone, they may not. And that day I was very shocked to hear that even with regard to availability of a smartphone, uh, some young girls are being, exploited sexually also on the pretext of giving a smartphone for some time. So gadgets, having a gadget or not having one, these are also leading to problems. Moreover, the lessons that are being carried on in the online platform, whatever I have seen, that these are not actually what we actually call online learning. So online learning is something different, and the sort of learning that is now taking place where teachers are giving in WhatsApp certain notes, etc., or trying to conduct classes by giving notes, etc. So students are now having a problem of grasping the concepts. And in the classroom, in the face-to-face situation, if they could have asked for clarification of their doubts, now within that limited period of time, often they are unable to voice their concerns. Moreover, there is the problem of technology, and there are other problems also of housing. So sometimes there are students that while the video is being shown, then they might have an issue about their house, what is the decoration of the house, what is the type of house they're living in. And this leads to some sort of, low self-esteem, shyness, etc., as a result of which they begin to feel very psychologically disturbed. We all know the cases of young students who have committed suicide just because they don't have a smartphone, or someone who has been embarrassed by a particular situation. So for college students, therefore, we find that their problems are slightly different. So before we go on to psychosocial health, let me first tell you a little bit about health. So health, usually when we say health, people very commonly say absence of illness is health. But actually today, when we talk about health, we don't mean only an absence of illness. When we call a person healthy, we generally mean that the person, apart from not having any known illnesses, is also energetic, dynamic, happy, friendly, has a readiness to do things, so many other things. So today, therefore, when we talk about health, it is a very holistic concept of health, which we call the biopsychosocial model of health. And this biopsychosocial model of health, basically, we know that health and illness are determined by a dynamic interaction between these three factors: the biological factor, the social factor, and the psychological factors. So when all these factors are in tandem, then you will find that the health, or which we commonly the term is mental health. People think mental health means only people not having mental illnesses, but actually the term mental health is a holistic term, which basically means a person who is physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially healthy. So it's a very broad and very comprehensive term. And therefore, when we talk about the biopsychosocial model of health, therefore, we are talking about the holistic model of health or mental health, whereby we understand that one's genetic makeup, one's mental health and personality characteristics, and one's socio-cultural environment also all together play an great impact on one's overall personality development, or what we call the psychosocial well-being. So what is psychosocial well-being? So when you look at the figure, it is very clear that psychosocial well-being has 4 components. So basically, number 1 is that you must be self-reliant. So self-reliant meaning someone who is able to manage themselves, and that will happen when you know yourself. So self-understanding, self-management lead to self-reliance. Personal growth. Personal growth meaning that you are constantly striving for improvement of yourself with each passing moment. So like I said, from everything, good or bad, if you think you want to learn, and if you take life like that, as giving you lessons, you will not only enjoy these experiences, and not only will these experiences give a different perspective to your life, but overall it will lead to your development and your personal growth. So second important thing is that it implies a constantly dynamic growth of a person. So personal growth, a constant development, dynamic development. Then comes the purpose, that we must all know the purpose of our lives, and then we can motivate ourselves or give direction to our desires. So knowing the purpose of our lives, the purpose of why we are doing whatever we are doing, gives a direction and meaning, and generally helps us to achieve our goals better. And last but not the least is the harmonious relationship. So when we talk about harmonious relationship, it also implies harmonious relationship not only with one's own needs and desires, but also with society. So therefore, when we talk about psychosocial well-being, it depends that how much a person is ready to adjust to and cope with the changes and losses that occur in their lives, and their readiness to change and modify themselves in the context of different experiences in the light of their learnings. So psychosocial well-being is therefore a very comprehensive term, which basically means that not only are you happy emotionally as a person, but you are also able to contribute to society and you make others around you happy, and in return from that you gain happiness. So I mentioned at the very beginning about Erikson's theory, and Erikson's theory basically believed that throughout the different stages of one's life, we experience a conflict at different stages. And that conflict provides us the turning point in our development. And if we are able to successfully overcome that conflict, we develop in ourselves a psychological quality of resilience, of bettering ourselves, of adjustment, and a gain in confidence. And if we fail to develop that, then we become confused, we become unsure, we become diffident, and whenever we are going on to the next stage of life where we are bound to be faced with another conflict, then we will not know how to react. So therefore he said that at every stage it is very important that you understand what is the particular conflict of the stage of development one is in, and then try to understand how to solve the conflict of that particular stage of development. So basically there are 8 stages, and therefore he says that at each stage there are different increases in the complexity. And as you develop from birth to teenage years, which is the 5th stage, so 5 stages between the first 20 years of one's life, and the last 3 stages over the next 50 years of your life. So therefore, the first 20 years of one's life are very important. And at this particular stage, for the students especially, they are in the stage of teenage or post-adolescent stage, which is say from 18 to 22. Nowadays, we say adolescence continues even up to 24 years. So even if we consider adolescence as up to 22, post-adolescence, and then starts the youth, stage of youth or young adult, then we find that most of us, most of you rather, I belong to a senior category, so most of you would belong within the post-adolescent stage or the next stage of young adulthood. Now, at this particular stage of adolescence, the most important conflict that one faces is the identity crisis. So, identity crisis basically means, who am I? Am I son or daughter of so and so? Am I student of so and so? Am I brother or sister of so and so? So you have different roles, you have different identities. But amongst all those identities, each one of us at this stage wants to make ourselves known as an individual. And this generally happens in the context of peers. So at this stage, it's very important that you have lots of good friends and peers amongst whom you can build your identity and you can grow up to be a confident young adult. And after this comes the next stage, which is the young adult or the youth. And their conflict is intimacy versus isolation. So this is the stage where generally you have completed your studies or you have completed your school, college education, you are now adult, 21 years you're adult, and you have the decision to take you have the autonomy and the legal right to take decisions involving your life, your relations. And this is the time when people look for romantic relationships also, intimacy. It could be not necessarily romantic, but it mostly is during this stage. So intimacy. So you are looking for someone with whom you can form a intimate relationship. Not necessarily physical, but somewhere where you can have mental meeting, social connection. That's very important. And if you don't have that, then you tend to go into isolation. So now, because of this pandemic, we are finding that many young adults are facing the situation of isolation, of the fact that they are not getting a chance either to be amongst peers and get their identities, or to be among bigger groups and form relationships which will give them confidence about their social meaningfulness. So therefore, in this adolescence period, post-adolescence period, according to him, the most important need is to need to develop a sense of self and personal identity. And if you can succeed in forming an identity, either by being an excellent student or an excellent sports person, or someone who has very great talent in some creative form of art or something. So what happens is that gives you an identity which is your own. And instead of being known as the child of so and so, your parents or your brothers and sisters will be known as the parents of your parents, parents of so and so. So that gives you an identity. So generally in this stage, we find that adolescents are looking for identity, and this pandemic therefore has inadvertently, put a stop to this, and therefore they are now feeling confused because they are totally at home, totally in the confines of home, and their identity at home is already identified from birth. This is the time for them to form their own identities, and this is something that they are not being given a chance to. And even if you consider yourself as a young adult, then also you are not getting a chance to form relationships because of the fact that we are having forced isolation due to the compulsion of the time. So therefore, we find that this pandemic is having a long-term impact on our mental well-being. And apart from the fact that we are understanding that there is a lot of anxiety and distress, and and these are very natural psychological responses to the situation of our times. But along with these responses, we are seeing some psychosomatic outcomes. That means because of our thoughts, because of our emotions, some behavioral changes, some physical outcomes are being seen in the people in our community. And these are becoming very frightening because if we do not recognize them, if we do not pay attention to these symptoms right now, then these will continue to get more and more aggravated over time, and later on these may lead to certain serious disorders which we call mental illnesses. So therefore, instead of just having a mass hysteria and panic regarding COVID-19, we should rather think about how to face this situation and become stronger, so that the life after this, which will definitely be better, after this we are ready to face those days ahead. And even if the future days may not be good, but we are ready to face the challenges ahead. So therefore, I feel that this is something we need to be conscious about. So one of the most common things that we all are aware right now is that the common word is stress. So what is stress? So stress is something that leads a person to feel that he or she is unable to manage either himself or herself, or unable to manage the situation that is leading to the stress. Actually, it is something very normal and common, and at times even desirable, because a little bit of stress is a motivator. But if we do not understand that why we are getting stressed, or what is the reason for the stress, or what is the trigger, we call it the trigger, that what is the trigger, cause of the stress, because stress is either because of something within you or because of something in the environment. So first you have to understand what is the trigger. Is it within you? And if it is within you, what do you need to do to change it? And if it is outside you, in the environment, what can you do to change it? So first and foremost, therefore, we have to understand what is stress. So there are two types of stress. Eustress, which I said is basically very positive, very good, and it is something which motivates you. So, and the other thing which we call distress, which is the negative connotation of the term stress, because it leads to a feeling of tightness. In fact, stress word itself comes from a Latin word strictus, which means tightness. So when you're talking about stress, generally we use it in the sense of distress. And therefore, when we are facing distress or the negative stress, then it disturbs our entire biopsychosocial health, and therefore it causes problems. So there are lots of causes for stress. It could be emotional, like I said, peer pressure, abuse. Right now, we find that a lot of abuse is happening online. Ekidin Khub Dia says that Zubin Gargar has been facing a lot of abuse online. So there is a lot of stress due to online abuse. There are conflicting cultural values or beliefs, and also the fact that right now we are all coping with uncertainty. We are not sure about what is COVID, how to deal with COVID, when we will get COVID, will we get COVID. So there is a lot of uncertainty all around, and therefore these are leading to certain emotional stress triggers in us. Physically, it could be due to late nights. Often young adults, I find adolescents and young adults are generally not having anything to do, so not getting to sleep early, having late nights. But these late nights, spending a lot of time in front of the computer screen or the phone screen, these lead to certain, neurological disturbances in our mind, as a result of which there is a lot of imbalances in our thought processes also later on. So it may lead to confusion, irritation, anger, etc. Then poor diet. So often because you're not going out, you don't feel hungry, you may neglect having good diet. So then it will lead to more problems, lack of exercise, and misuse of alcohol and drugs can lead to physical triggers. Environment, like I said, socially disadvantaged people have a lot of environmental stressors because they face discrimination based on gender, on sexuality, disability, etc. Housing is another problem, social isolation, money worries, unemployment, and also right now for students, the academic stress. Then apart from that, there can be life changes like leaving home, having to leave home, changing schools from one school to another due to transfer, etc., family or relationship with. There can be lots of causes. So whenever you feel that sense of tightness, of that, stress and inability to decide, always try to first understand what is the cause of your stress. Is it manageable? Can you change it? Or if you cannot change it, can you change yourself? That will give you the next step. So impact of the stress is physiological, short term and long term, you will find short term, you will have faster heart rate, perspiration, rapid breathing, tenseness of muscles, nausea, diarrhea, and frequent urination, etc. And if it is long term, you will find that there will be tiredness, then there might be change in appetite, sleep disturbances. So there are lots of physiological impacts. Emotionally, you will find that generally stress leads to fear, anxiety. Anxiety is something very closely related to stress, and especially in this pandemic period, this has really become a matter of concern, and an inability to concentrate. There is frustration, there is depression, there is restlessness, there is irritability and forgetfulness. And behavioral changes, we find that people are becoming very cynical, very critical, very negative attitudes. Increasingly, I find that due to this pandemic, people, the very negative characteristics of human beings are now coming out to the forefront. And this could be due to the stress on individuals. And therefore, I find that people are becoming very negative. They are withdrawing from society. They are suspicious about people. And they are also very becoming dependent on certain additional things for like alcohol and drugs to relieve their problems. So like I said, there can be acute stress and chronic stress. So acute stress is short term. So generally there is a trigger and you feel the stress, and then either you manage yourself or you manage the situation and you can recover. But when stress continues over a long period and you are not addressing the cause either within yourself or in the environment, then this tends to continue over a long period of time, and this is very harmful to the psychological well-being of a person. So therefore, it's very important that stress, you recognize, stress is integral in our lives. We will have to face stress, but let it be acute stress, let it be new or positive stress, but never ever let it become chronic stress. Because if you let it become chronic, it will lead to anxiety. And anxiety is something which leads to a lot of neurological, psychological, and social problems. And most dangerously, that constant anxiety can lead to a situation where your entire physiology might be changed, and you might have to become unresponsive to psychotherapy or medication or self-therapy, and you might have to be treated by a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. So therefore, it's very important that we understand stress and leave it at that. Don't allow it to continue beyond. Because you have to understand that stress, like I said, is always because of one particular reason. There is a cause. It may be within you or it may be outside you. But anxiety is always out of imaginary and futuristic thoughts. Whereas stress actually has a trigger, there is a reason. But in anxiety, there is no reason. Just imaginary, just thinking about the future. But stress is always in the present. Stress can be managed by different techniques, but anxiety may require medication. Because stress, if you understand the cause of your stress, and like I'll give you certain techniques. So if you understand it, then you can manage your stress. But when you have anxiety, you cannot do all those things. You cannot do self-therapy. You cannot do different forms of psychotherapy because you will require medication, which is something very dangerous and very disheartening. Stress is always short-term. and it can lead to some sleep disturbances, poor attention, etc. But it's generally short term. But however, if you leave it untreated, then what happens? It can lead to anxiety, and then it will lead to certain physical manifestations like palpitations, sweating, loss of appetite, sleep disorders. And if these continue for a long time, the person's personality will be affected, and the person will start feeling worthless, and there may be suicidal ideation also. So anxiety often leads to a sense of despair, worthlessness, and often at such times people take a wrong decision and commit suicide. So therefore, it's very important that we understand that stress is very normal, natural, manageable. But if stress is not managed, it can lead to anxiety, which is slowly becomes unmanageable and may lead to problems not only for the individual concerned, but also for the people around, for the environment around. So there are different types of anxiety disorders. I'll just give very briefly that generalized anxiety disorder, which we are very frequently seeing around us due to COVID-19, GAD. Basically, in this, we find that there is restlessness, there is fatigue, tense muscle, interrupted sleep, and generally, you have during certain times of the day, you have certain anxiety symptoms, like maybe palpitations, or maybe you might be feeling nauseous, or maybe you might be feeling very scared, or you might be feeling afraid of something. So generally, generalized anxiety disorder affects our entire thinking, mind, and our behavior. And therefore, in this COVID, the most common thing that you will notice is the generalized anxiety disorder, due to the fact that COVID is something which we are absolutely none of us were prepared for, and something that we are understanding every passing. So it's different. In America, I still remember those body bags and the coffins. Thankfully, in India, the situation is not so bad. But then still, when you suddenly hear the death of a young person, then it again scares you. So there is a generalized anxiety, which is very common. But if you leave it at that it is anxiety, okay, I have to manage it, then that's fine. But if you allow it to continue, then it will lead you to problems. So because of the anxiety, generalized anxiety disorders, there are some others at a more higher level. So you might have panic disorders. So panic attack, when it happens, generally you will start feeling breathless. You might feel, like you cannot breathe, and you might feel that you might just faint. So it's a sudden sense of helplessness and a total inability to control yourself. So panic disorders are common. OCDs are becoming very common, maybe because of the fact that you have to continuously clean your hands. So I find people all the time washing hands with soap, sanitizer, 10 minutes. So, and then we want everything spick and span. So we are spraying disinfectants all the time. When people come also, we are looking at them with suspicion, whether we should allow them to sit or not. So I find that people have become so obsessed with certain ideas. And because of this constant, thinking, rethinking the same things, the same fears, they are now having the compulsion to act in certain way. So obsessions are continuously ideas that keep on coming continuously in the mind, over which you have no control. And compulsion is the desire to do something as a result of that thought. So it is a OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. The thought happens in the mind, and that mind leads you to a particular type of activity, and this is known as OCD. And in this pandemic period, I think OCDs have become really very common. So this is again something which is okay. It is normal. We can manage it, but if you should not allow it to go beyond a certain level. Post-traumatic stress disorder. So now we are talking about pandemic and the stress disorders, generalized anxiety disorder during pandemic. But I can tell you that once this pandemic is over, after that, you will find that there will be so much of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because people will be living in fear for a long time after this. Even after having an accident or having a very stressful event in one's life, generally those memories, those events stay in our lives. So after COVID, when we start resuming classes, when we start resuming our old lives, you will find that there will be many people who will start having, post-traumatic stress disorder. So next we have the phobias. So phobias are again extreme or irrational fears. So there is no reason for the fear to be so great, but then these are irrational. So for example, when we see a cockroach, most women, when we see cockroaches, we get or spiders or caterpillars. But these are simple phobias that we don't like them, they don't give us good feelings, so we are not happy when we have them. But there might be a social phobia also. There are lots of people who suffer from social anxiety. That whenever they are they might be very normal, comfortable, talking very nicely, but the moment someone comes in, they just clam up. That is social phobia. Then there is agoraphobia, and that is fear of situations, like which might be getting difficult. So getting away from a lift or getting into a train and then getting out of the train. So there are lots of phobias. I can go on and on about phobias. So phobias are basically irrational fears or disproportionate fears. And in this particular pandemic period, I find that this disproportionate phobias have become very common. So nowadays I find that even if there is someone whose house is a containment zone, people refuse to even go by the lane of that house. Why? Is the virus traveling in the lane of that house? I mean, you know that it is only through contact. It is only through the mouth or the nose tract. But yet people are treating them like social isolates, and people treat them like they should be excluded or exiled as though they are in exile. So this shows that people's phobias are becoming so strong that despite knowing that COVID does not happen like that, it does not travel in the air, that even if you go past the road, it doesn't matter because the person is inside the house, but yet people are afraid to go even in front of a house where there is a COVID patient. So these sort of phobias, which are irrational, disproportionate, are becoming so common. But as educated people who know how this disease happens, we actually should be more conscious and try to modify our behaviors so that we don't harm the sentiments of those people. If you listen to the experiences of the COVID patients who have come out of the treatment, most of them say only that. The fact that they have felt very bad because of the stigmatization that they have faced, and because of the fact that they were treated with so much, they were exposed to a lot of bad behavior by people in general. So these are things we need to really, understand and control so that we don't hurt others' sentiments because of our own irrational fears. Apart from the anxiety disorders, another very important category of disorders is mood disorder. So nowadays TV is full of bipolar disorders, and Sushant Singh Rajput Singh had bipolar disorder. Now, mood disorders are what? Mood disorders, we all know that sometimes we feel down and out, and sometimes we feel very happy. It's natural because our emotions keep on fluctuating at different times. But when we talk about disorders as such, generally we know that these are disorders because they continue for a long period of time. They are not, fluctuating. So if you have major depression, it means that you will constantly have a low mood, very low mood, and you will lose interest in activities and events that earlier you used to enjoy. So whenever you have major depression, suddenly you lose interest in anything that used to give you pleasure earlier. But here what happens that slowly the person's depression becomes so aggravated, they become sadder and more sad, and then slowly they go into isolation because they don't like to be with people. That is major depression. Bipolar is when the person fluctuates, that sometimes he will have extreme happiness and at other times he will be extremely sad. So bipolar disorder is like that because normally we experience moods and happiness and pain, but we don't go into the extremes frequently. But in bipolar disorder, the person will experience unusual changes in the mood and energy levels. And therefore, when they are in a happy or ecstatic level, then they will be having high energy, high levels of activity, and they will be extremely happy and exhilarated. But the other times when they are sad, then they will be in that depressive mood and they will not smile, they will not talk, they will stop talking, they will go into isolation and then just refuse to come out. And then you can make out that this person is having bipolar disorder. And seasonal affective disorder is something which is nowadays seen in certain countries which have lack of exposure to sunlight. So nowadays we find that because of our modern office structures and all, that we stay in AC environments, etc. So we are exposed to less daylight or sunshine. But that sunshine is very important for us because it helps to stimulate our mental cells and it helps to improve our sense of well-being and exhilaration. So if you are deprived of proper sunlight and over a long period of time, then what happens? That generally you may have a tendency to go into depression. So that's why we say that in the winter months, people are generally not very happy unless they are having certain stimulating drinks, etc. Because reduced daylight, etc. triggers seasonal affective disorder. But what I would like to stress here that all the disorders that I mentioned, anxiety disorders, phobias, general anxiety disorder, OCDs, etc., mood disorders, these are all such that the individual, if he or she is identified as having this disorder, can on his or her own or with the help of others learn to function positively and effectively in the community. So therefore, when we look at the mental health model, you will find that at the base level, people are happy, they have no problems. At the second level, they are distressed, they might be unhappy, angry or something, but after a while, they understand and they come back. The stress is solved. At the third level is the mental disorders, which can continue for a longer period of time and it can affect the biology of the person also, the physiology of the person. And it is at this stage that it's important for us to recognize that these are the symptoms that this person is facing something psychosocially, and hence it is the time to step in and try to help the person. And if you can do it as a counselor, as a guide, as a person who has compassion, empathy for the person, you can bring that person back to normalcy, or you can guide him or her to go on for some psychological counseling, etc. And these are the people who, with early identification and assessment, you can make a difference in their lives. They can live normal lives. They can live amongst you and us as normal people, doing all the normal things they do. And for them, you don't require long-term rehabilitation treatment or psychiatric treatment. All they require is a little bit of love, compassion, understanding, and counseling, psychotherapy. So in the recovery model, therefore, we believe that up to mental disorder level, we can bring back people to live normal lives. So how can we help them? We can help them through counseling. And so counseling is something that people think to be a counselor, you need to have expertise. I don't really think so. What is important is, in order to be a good counselor, you need to have empathy or an understanding, to provide an understanding shoulder to the person to share his or her pain. So here it is basically a psychological approach, and here through different forms of therapy, the psychologist talks to the person and tries to bring order into their chaotic or confusing thoughts. And therefore, these are the people who, if you can make them understand the root of the problems, why they are facing it, and you can help them to work on those problems that they are facing, slowly on their own, they are able to come out of these problems and they are able to live a normal life. So there are different forms of therapy. What is most important is it could be expressive therapy. In fact, in this COVID period especially, it has been emphasized that expressive therapy should be used. So whereby the people who are having certain tendencies towards mental disorders, they should be allowed to express their anxieties, fears in some creative platform, either through a dance or through an art or through some performing art or through play or through animal assisted therapy, so you can keep a pet, or through certain conditioning habits. But most important form which has been emphasized, especially now in the post-pandemic stage, is the multi-system approach. So here is today the fact that you're organizing a awareness and sensitization program. This is the first step of a multi-system approach, where basically families, schools, peer environments, etc., society, different agencies of society, the government, all of them are involved, and they frame certain ways through which to deal with the problem. So this is the very important form of multi-system approach which we can use to deal with mental illnesses. Not mental illnesses, sorry, mental disorders. Mental illnesses always will require psychiatric care and psychiatric treatment. Sometimes we find that only counseling doesn't work, because when you have extreme anxiety especially, sometimes you might be prescribed certain medications. But however, what is important to be understood is that medications, if you are given by a authorized doctor, especially for depression, because anxiety leads to depression, and depression is a very common disease nowadays. And in 2020, it is according to the World Health Organization, it will be the second greatest killer disease after heart disease. So on the one hand, we have heart disease, where there is a problem with the physiology of the functioning of the heart. But in depression, there is no organic defect. It is all in the mind. So therefore, don't ignore the fact that if you have a disorder, then take note of the disorder. Don't allow it to become an illness. So if you are given medications, then it's very important that you must have those medications till you gain that confidence, or rather regain the confidence in your own self, that even without the medication, you can slowly start living your normal life. So these medications are generally short-term, given for some time. You all know that even Deepika Padukone had depression and she took medications for 6 months. So generally 6 months is the minimum period where you, or rather I should say for depression, that is the maximum that is required. Because along with the medication, some other self-therapy is also given. So medications are not to be avoided. If the doctor suggests, please go in, but don't become dependent. Along with medication, very important is that we think about self-help, how we can help ourselves and how we can make changes in our lifestyles so that we can facilitate our own wellness. See? So if you understand why you are feeling that particular, so if you know the cause, it could be alcohol. Then if you know it is alcohol, then reduce it. If you find that you're sleeping more, then find out why you are sleeping more, why you are tired all the time. Is it because you are really sleepy or is it because you lack energy? And if you're having lack of energy, what could be the reason that you are having that lack of energy? So self-help is when you try to understand the changes in your body and try to address those changes. And another very important thing is that we find that whenever we take help of certain techniques, which are now tried and tested techniques like yoga, pranayama, mindfulness, relaxation techniques, these techniques build in ourselves a capacity to fight off anxiety and depression. So, therefore, it's very important that we need to learn certain relaxation techniques like deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness, etc., so that we can, tackle depression or anxiety. And most important is that you must have some close friends and family members to help you also to come out of it. So self-help and your family and social support, these are very important. So generally, therefore, what can we do? Here I'm giving you the statement of Viktor E. Frankl, where he said that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Who was Viktor E. Frankl? Viktor E. Frankl was a Holocaust survivor who is a very well-known existentialist philosopher. And his story is that when he was kept in a Nazi concentration camp, he was subject to a lot of torture. One by one, all the people who had been admitted along with him died in front of his eyes. But he was the sole survivor. And what kept him surviving? His survival, the reason was that his hope was that he wanted to meet his wife. He didn't know that his wife had already died in the concentration camp. But the hope that he will survive to meet his wife one day was the reason he was able to come out of such a tough situation. And that is why he says that when we can't change a situation, we have to change ourselves. And if we change ourselves, we can bring a change not only in ourselves, but even to those around us. So what do we do? According to him, between a stimulus and a response, there is space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. So if we act, without mindfulness, that is what it is. That means you are reacting to the situation. So you are seeing someone with a disease go by and you're just turning up your nose or you're just looking aside. That is your reaction. Because without a thought, you have seen the stimulus and you're reacting. But an educated person, a person who is ready to modify and change his behavior, will always act with mindfulness. So when there is a stimulus, before showing the response, they will think about it. and then decide what is the response they will show. And this, according to him, is the 3-second rule. So he said that when there is a stimulus, between the stimulus and the response, you have a freedom to choose. And how do you choose? You choose by self-awareness, you choose by the help of imagination, you choose by the help of your own conscience, you choose by your independent will. So between a stimulus and a response, if you choose to show your response in a conscious, mindful manner, generally your response will always be the right response. And therefore he said that whenever you face a situation which challenges you, take a break and follow the 3-second rule. What is the 3-second rule? First second, what is happening? That means pay attention to the situation that has brought the challenge. So that means with self-detachment and mindfulness, try to understand why the situation is there as it is. Second, he said, what are my options? So now comes the choice. So whatever the circumstances we have, there will always be some degree of freedom of control. So as an educated person, as a person who knows the situation, you will therefore now think that how should I react? What are my options? And generally here, the most important thing we say is that we show courage. That you can destroy my body, but you cannot kill my soul. That means courage. And that courage will come from faith. So you have to therefore reflect that you have paid attention to the situation. Now, what is my option? How do I react? And thirdly, what would be the best thing to do in this situation? And therefore, he said, whenever therefore you are in a problem, always, whenever you are faced with a challenge, give yourself those 3 seconds. First, pay attention to what is that particular problem due to. Think before you of the options, the choices, and then make the choice of what would be the best. So here, remember, you are the one in control because it is up to you. See, there are always 2 ways to go. So if you take the unhelpful thoughts and beliefs, etc., and if you allow these to cloud your thoughts and feelings, then what will happen? Your actions will come to a stop because you will not be able to decide what to do. It will slow you down. On the other hand, if you think positively, if you think very rationally, if you think with your mind, if you think about the future with hope, then what happens? You get a positive energy and your actions will now be energized and you will feel that urgency to move in the right direction. So it is up to you that what you choose. If you choose negative feelings, you have to stop because beyond a point you cannot move forward. But if you choose helpful thoughts, positive feelings, then you will find that your journey just has started. So therefore, according to him, what is important is that you should develop resilience. And in fact, today modern psychologists have said that upon a research of all the successful people, it has been seen that successful people generally have one quality, which is resilience. And what is resilience? Resilience is the speed and strength with which one can overcome adversities. That means you have to accept that life will throw you challenges. But you have to overcome these challenges. So resilience means it doesn't mean that you don't fail, but it means you fail, but you again get up, ready to move ahead. So it is not something that you are born with, but it is something that you have to develop. And it can be developed because you must be ready for the battle. Remember, life is a battle. It is a journey. It is not something that, you have a goalpost and you will reach it. No, it's an ongoing journey. And in that journey, there will be different milestones, there will be different failures, there will be different paths. But then you have to choose which path to follow. And if the path that you follow has certain thorns on the way, it has certain problems on the way, don't give up. Just carry on. Be mindful of your choices and carry on, and you will find that you will be able to overcome it. So therefore, he talked about resilience and the 6 dimensions of resilience. And you can remember it as Brahmanti. So belief, most important thing is belief. So when you have faith in either yourself or in others or God or something, that belief always gives you hope. So most important thing according to him is the belief. And for him, it was his belief that he would survive. Viktor Frankl, for him, the belief was that he would survive the concentration camp. Why? Because his hope was that he wanted to meet his wife. So imagine how, that means the positive power of hope can give you the courage and the power to transcend everything. Second, he says, is responsibility. And this sense of responsibility, doing the right thing, making the right choice, will happen when you have a correct sense of morality. What is the right thing? So values. Values are very important in making the right decisions. Third thing he said is positive emotions. So appreciation. So always be grateful for whatever you have. What I say, count your blessings. Instead of being negative, cynical, and counting all the bad things, always remember that there are those small things in life which we never appreciate. But if you learn to appreciate that, and when you learn the sorrows of someone else's life, and then you think that, oh my God, I'm so lucky, at least I have this, then that shows that you are learning to be grateful for whatever life has given you. And that is very important, that gratitude towards life and other people around you. So that will give you the positive emotion. Mindfulness, I have already stressed about mindfulness, that non-judgmental observation of a situation without any prejudice, without any, judgment. As it is, you have to judge it. Then meaning. And meaning is what? That is what I said, that focus on what is the purpose of your life, what matters to you. And when you realize you have a purpose in life, that will give you the meaning of life. And that meaning of life will help you to become a better person. And last but not the least, he said toughness. And by toughness, like I said, grit and resilience, courage, defiance, endurance. So life is tough. Life is tough for all of us. But it is only the resilient people who can cope up with life and make things change in their environment to suit their purposes in life. So therefore, he says that if we, build up these qualities of resilience in us, we will be able to achieve not only our own meaning of life, our purpose in life, but we will also be more responsible. We will learn to appreciate the good things that are there around us. We will be mindful about the realities, and we will always be tough and ready to face challenges. So now I think I have said it's been almost more than 1 hour. So I would like to come to a conclusion. World Health Organization, because of this pandemic, has also given certain recommendations to ensure psychosocial well-being of people, and therefore they have said that always try to identify your emotional reactions. What is normal according to you, and see if it is normal according to the others also. So always identify your emotional reactions. Try to always keep communication alive, either by talking to another person or talking to different persons. Dialogue or social exchange. Have some appropriate lifestyles and social contacts. Maintain, a good lifestyle. Like we know, we have to build up our immunity, eat the correct food, go to bed at the correct time, follow a routine. We may not have to go to school, college, or work, but then you can manage a routine to keep it as normal as possible. Avoid smoking, drinking, etc., drugs. Seek out health workers whenever necessary. It could be a psychological health worker, it could be a psychiatric social worker, it could be a doctor, it could be a community help. But look out and seek out help if you feel that you need help. Seek information from reliable sources, limit your exposure to media, and try to learn some strategies for emotional regulation. So there are lots of practical tips. This I don't need to actually show you, because the Ministry of Human Resource Development, now it is known as the Ministry of Education, has already put in its website an advisory for students. There are two actually, one for school students, one for college and university students. It is known as Manodarpan. They have started a psychosocial intervention program, Manodarpan, and as per the Manodarpan, they have already brought out an advisory. And in that advisory, they have given some very simple, practical tips and suggestions for students, and for students, for principals, for teachers, etc. And these are most of the things which I have already told you and which have been suggested by the World Health Organization. But apart from that, what I would like to suggest is that try to add some variety into your daily activities. Don't make your life routine and monotonous. Do something which makes you happy. It could be gardening, it could be listening to music, it might be reading a book, it might be spending some time on social media, but try to do something that makes you happy. Find some me time for yourself and try to build up some life skills. And during this time, I find that a number of webinars and training sessions are being conducted online. So you can take the help of those to upskill yourself, so that you this time, although you might not be having college classes, but at least you can use this period to skill up your life skills or your own personal skills, so that when you go out to the world later on, you will be more better equipped, and you don't have to think that your time has been wasted. So this time that you're getting right now, you will not get this sort of time again. So try to utilize this time to learn a particular skill which can help you in the future. So, sometimes it has been said that a situation like COVID-19, it is a moment of rude awakening, but according to positive psychologists, they say that sometimes this sort of rude awakening is very much important. Why? Because it makes us wake up to the horrors of human suffering and death, and then we start questioning that what is the meaning of life. So sometimes I think that COVID-19, despite all the negativities around it, I find that it has given me a new meaning to life. Because some things which I took for granted, some things which I neglected in my constant rush, work, now I find that those were not as meaningful now when I think of it. as they seem to be at that time. Rather, some other things which I neglected as not being so meaningful, I find that these are the things which are very meaningful. For example, taking care of my health. So this is an awakening. I would like to think of it as an awakening for us to think about how we now need to shape our life for the future, to make better lives, better livings. And therefore, sometimes I feel this sort of a rude awakening is much required to make us realize how much we have damaged our society, how much we have damaged our environment, how much we have damaged ourselves. So therefore, if you can't go outside, go deep inside. We pray for our situation to change, but we forget that situation was designed for us to change. And I think in the context of COVID-19, I would like you all to, internalize this statement that we want the situation to change definitely, but I would also like to think that this situation has been designed by some power for us also to change for a better future. So the Foresight Report of 59 has recommended 5 ways of psychosocial well-being, and they are to connect with people around you, family, friends, etc. Learn to be active, do something, go for a walk, play a game, do some gardening, but do some activity which makes you physically alert and fit. Keep learning, because it could be a new language, it could be a new recipe, it could be a new skill, but always keep learning, keep growing. And if you keep learning, life is never boring. Then be mindful and take notice that what is happening around you. Be curious. We have, over the past few years, we had become so selfish and self-centered. We never used to look around people around us. But I think now we need to understand that we need to be also curious about the world around us and be aware about the people around us, of the needs around us, and take notice of them. And last but not the least, give. Do something nice for somebody. I would always say do something nice for somebody, do some voluntary work, join a community group. We have all seen that during this lockdown, the migrant laborers, how many social organizations just took over and gave these people food, shelter. So even now this is continuing. So if you can do something for someone else in your community, someone less privileged, it generally gives you a sense of well-being. So 5 ways to well-being are simply this. And if you can follow these 5 ways, you will always be happy. So I would like to conclude by saying that more people of all ages and backgrounds will have better well-being and good mental health, and fewer people will develop mental health problems if we start well, develop well, live well, work well, and age well. All we need is to do 2 things. Number 1, improve the mental well-being and life expectancy of individuals, which is what I told you about in my last 1 hour, more than 1 hour. And also ensure that fewer people of all ages develop mental health problems. So if you know someone who shows the symptoms of mental disorders that I described, take them, talk to them, and if you can't deal with their problems, take them to someone and ensure that these people come back to normalcy, live better lives, and they don't turn into mentally ill patients. Remember, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. Thank you so much. So with that, I would like to end my presentation.
Thank you, Nita Vaidyo, for such an illuminating presentation. You touched almost all the important aspects relating to today's topic. Hope, like me, all our participants got enlightened by your presentation. Now the interaction session, that means question answer session. Bahut question aise Vaidyo, but we can pick up only a few because due to the paucity of time. খুব ধুনীয়া ধুনীয়া questions and all. So, everyone told that the presentation was quite nice. A few also asking for the PPT also. Anyway, okay, Baido, can I pick up questions one by one?
Sure.
Eta question ahise, what are the symptoms of identity crisis? Is it restricted to certain age group only? What are the symptoms of identity crisis? Is it restricted to certain age group only?
Identity crisis is actually, see, when we talk about stage-wise development, you cannot give clearly marks that it starts at this age and it ends at this stage. So adolescence is a long period. Although it is from 12 to 19, but nowadays we say it's 3 years before 12. That means from 9 years to another 3 years after 19 up to 22. So it's a very long period. And like I said, nowadays even up to 24 years. So almost 15 years lifespan. And in this lifespan, you go through different transformations. But along with all the biological changes, emotional changes, etc., most important thing is that identity. And it happens in the teenage years predominantly because of the fact that here the confusion is about the role. What is the role of that individual in the society? So the confusion is about their role in the context of the society. So the role at home, the role at school, the role in the community, these different roles create in them a confusion about which is the real them. And apart from that, in our society, what happens is from a very young age, we are taught about what others expect from us. But we do all that listening to others, but we don't do the listening to our own self, our own desires, our own needs. And it is at this time when your cognitive development is fully developed. And this is the time when you start understanding that you also have needs. You have personal needs, you have social needs, you have cognitive needs, you have psychological needs. And sometimes these come into conflict with the needs of the society. And that creates the confusion. And therefore, this is the period where you need to form a very clear-cut identity as to who am I. And when you understand that, and it should not be either you excluding society or only society excluding you, that takes time. And therefore, it is in the adolescence period, therefore, we see the identity crisis very predominantly.
Sorry, how much parental guidance is important for children during COVID-19 pandemic? How much parental guidance is important for children during COVID-19 pandemic?
No, that would depend. Children meaning what age? So if it is young children, definitely parental guidance will be required. For teenagers, I won't say that parents have to give. Parents can give advice. Just talk to them, share. But with young children, definitely there is a lot of anxiety, and they don't understand what is COVID, why they are being asked to stay indoors. So definitely, parents will have to talk to them and make them understand at their level about the fearfulness or the insecurities that are there in the society at present, as a result of which you are asking them to stay inside. And this sort of communication, this sort of patient listening to them and trying to understand their fears, their grievances, this is very important. So parents need to talk to children, even young children, even teenagers. Although teenagers, I'm not sure will listen to their parents, but through their own peers, and even parents can make some time for their teenage children also. At dinner time, you can talk to them. But that sort of talking is very important, very important.
Okay. Another questions. I have heard many people saying that stress is sometimes beneficial. So
Yes.
my question is, can stress be ever beneficial?
Of course. See, I was very stressed about this presentation because today morning my computer was not working. But it motivated me to go and get it done, no, even in the COVID situation. So, it depends. And I was very, Navanita, don't mind, but I was told by Pulak that you were scared that today is 13th. And so maybe 13 is an unlucky number. So I don't believe in all that.
Yes, I told Pulak.
Yeah, and today is Thursday also. If you but for me, these are the challenges. I take these things as challenges. That is it. It is your mindset, how you think about it. If you treat it as a distress, it will become distress for you. But if you take it positively and you think about how, like I said, you have to know the stressor and you have to deal with the stressor. So if you know the stressor, is it within you or is it outside you? For me, it was outside. I could manage it. So, Bonita, you need to manage your internal triggers. So that's it. So when you know those triggers, they can be very positive because they move you to action, and that is very important.
Another question, ma'am. After opening school, how will you, the teacher, entrust psychological support to the students?
Because now, see, after in the new education policy that has been announced recently, counselors are compulsorily to be there in all schools, and even colleges are now to be having counselors, please. And I would like to take this platform to really publicize my Center for Studies in Applied Psychology. We have the Applied Psychology program of clinical psychology and counseling psychology. Plus, we have a postgraduate diploma in counseling psychology. This is the future. You must have noticed that in the COVID-19 situation and in the post-COVID-19 situation, there will be a new rethink about careers. There will be a new rethink about choices of subjects. Psychology is a subject which is very important because counselors and because people-oriented, human-related professions will become very important in the future, post-pandemic scenario. And therefore, it's very important that we need to take care of the health and well-being of young children. And as per the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030 also, in education, through education and in the home and in the schools, it is very important that you have to promote health and well-being. And this can be done with the help of counselors in the school, as well as parents at home who play supportive counseling roles for their own children also.
One question, ma'am. It said that, thank you very much, ma'am. But in the recent past, we have observed that the role of World Health Organization is not beyond doubt. Do you believe that the recommendations of World Health Organization is exhaustive one? What is your view with regard to reopening of educational institutions in the month of September? Is it possible, ma'am?
I would not like to comment. I'm not in an administrative decision-making body, but what is important is that World Health Organization, when it was initially set up, the idea was an overarching body which would have, internationally recognized body. But due to the recent pandemic and their inefficiency in handling the situation and in informing the world community, their delayed response rather. So therefore, it has come in for a lot of flack. However, we cannot wish away or do away with the World Health Organization. But World Health Organization is not an empowering body. It is just something which gives you guidelines and, researches and gives you certain ideas about what you can do and policies. So because of the World Health Organization guidelines 2020, in our country, the Ministry of Human Resource Development on 21st July 2020, that's hardly 1 month back, introduced Manodarpan, the Psychosocial Intervention Program. And it has stressed upon the fact that this sort of psychosocial intervention program, which includes telecounseling, online counseling, guidance, plus webinars, plus life skill training, plus the role of teachers, the role of principals of institutions, and it has also stressed the fact that this is not something that is important only in the pandemic period. It will be there even in the future, because I told you, after pandemic there will be a post-traumatic stress disorder. Lots of PTSDs will happen. So just don't think that once everything opens that life will be normal. No, there will be lots of PTSD. So we need to prepare for that. And that is why this sort of psychosocial intervention programs, this sort of awareness programs are very important. And I would like to congratulate you all for organizing this sort of a webinar on such a relevant topic.
Ma'am, another question. I want to know that as a teacher counselor, what to do when parents of a child complained that their child is lying to them in the names of having online classes, so that the child will get the phone and can use it in some other purpose.
Oh, this is another very important problem that has come up in this COVID period. It will depend, of course, a lot will be a lot of monitoring is required of children. But I believe that response, if you explain to the children the responsibility that you have entrusted to them by giving them your phone, they respect that responsibility. That sense of responsibility has to come from them. Any sort of change always has to come from within. It should not be outside. So force sort of control by threatening them, or saying that if you do this we'll punish you. So there is a problem, of course, because suddenly children have been given this and they are not used to this. So of course a little bit of guidance is very important. Moreover, because in this digital world there is a lot of threats also, security threats, online threats are there. There is cyberbullying. There are lots. Recently, we have heard about those pornographic sites being, so lots of dark, gray, and black areas there. So, of course, whenever you're giving them the phone, you need to supervise and monitor them if it is first time they are using. And therefore, counseling, I won't say counseling, but I would rather say that you talk to the child in a manner of respect. If it is an adolescent, I would say talk to them one-on-one, because an adolescent is to be treated as a friend, not your child. So you talk to them, tell them that this is a responsibility that you have been given this, but I hope you will keep my belief in you and you will not do something wrong. And you hope and pray that what you have taught them, if you have taught them the right lessons in life, they will not do something wrong. That's something I believe in. You have to keep faith in your children.
There are too many questions, but I will pick up only a few, because by the very good sense, a few questions are almost similar. One question is, ma'am, is there any specific characteristics when a person is in stress?
Yeah, most important characteristic is you will feel that tightness, the physiological characteristic. A sense of uneasiness will happen. Then first, physically you will feel uneasy. And secondly, you will find mentally you will not be able to take a decision. Indecisiveness will happen. Confusions happen. So that inability to think properly, this happens. But the most important trigger, immediately because of the stress, you will feel a physical tension. Most common. Physical tension and mental irritability, or mental stress.
How can we overcome mood swings or control of mind?
Mood swings will depend on how long it takes to swing. So if your mood is in a depressed state for a long period of time, then I would suggest that do something that will make you happy. And I think music is very therapeutic. So that's why I said, do something that acts as a therapy. It can be art, it can be somewhere where you express your emotions, or it can be something as simple as, listening to very soothing music. For me personally, music is very soothing and it really helps me to come out of any such dark phases. So music, therefore, I think the music industry is growing because of that, because it is able to cater to so many, different sections of people and their problems and their stresses. For example, rap music, so popular. Rap is nothing but the expression of frustrations, but expressed in a creative manner. You must have all heard about Rahul Rajkhwa, the boy from Assam, rapper from Assam, who has used his rapping talent to bring socially relevant issues like even the Citizenship Amendment Act. So see, these are such nice ways to vent your frustration in creative manners, and through which you are not only able to express your anger, but you are giving it a creative expression. And with that music, you are able to reach so many people who can understand, identify with the thoughts and the words. So these are the ways. And I personally feel that music is very relaxing. So if you are stressed, you should really listen to some good music. There are lots of different mood musics also. So you can listen to the different mood musics also. But you do something that will make you happy. It can be cooking also.
Yes.
Cooking is very cathartic. I find cooking is very cathartic. So there are many who enjoy cooking. So it depends. Whatever makes you happy. But choose something that through which you can produce something. That is always more satisfying.
Ma'am, one last question is very interesting. Can Adda, group of guys talking over roadside, help to recover from mental stress? Because I have heard a lot of people saying about this, that it helps a lot. Adda.
No, there is an intellectual Adda which takes place in canteens in colleges, which is very good. I don't know about the Adda of the young adolescents, but yeah, it is a stress reliever for them. That I know. That it's true. They get together amongst peers, talk about common themes and share certain things. It's true, but as long as it's harmless, it's okay. But if it leads to either physical or verbal abuse, then we can't call it desirable. So it will depend. যদি আর চাই থাকোতে কোনোবা ছোৱালী পাৰ হৈ যাওঁতে কিবা এটা বেয়া কমেন্ট কৰে, that is not desirable. But if they are just staying together, talking, sharing, laughing, that's fine, as long as they are doing it in their company without abusing someone else's privacy.
Actually, your presentation is liked by so many people. Actually, it is liked by also bombardment of questions, but it is not possible to pick up all the questions. So, dear participants, I will send all your questions to ma'am through mail, and ma'am will answer the questions when she finds time. So, thank you so much, ma'am.
Ask them to come and meet me.
Exactly.
Come and meet me. I would be glad to have them as my students, either in education or in applied psychology in the future. And ask them to come and meet me there.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I think most of our participants were satisfied by the present explanation given by you. Thank you once again. Now the time for vote of thanks. For this, I would like to invite Dr. Budul Chandra Das, Coordinator, IQSC Women's College Tinsukia, to offer his vote of thanks. Dr. Das.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, audible, very much audible.
Thank you, Dr. Nobonita Deka. Good evening, everyone present here in this webinar on the topic Impact of COVID-19 on the psychosocial well-being of teachers and students, organized by the Department of Education in collaboration with IQAC of Women's College, Tinsukia. I am Dr. Budul Chandra Das, coordinator of the IQAC of Women's College, Tinsukia. I have the pleasure to offer vote of thanks to all the dignitaries and participants present in the platform on behalf of the entire team of the webinar. I then first would like to offer sincere thanks to the Honorable Principal and Chairperson of the IQAC of Women's College, Tinsukia, Dr. Rajiv Bodole sir, for his inspiration and support to organize such student-oriented, fruitful webinars. Thank you very much, sir. I then would like to offer heartfelt thanks to the resource person of the webinar, Dr. Nita Polita Burua ma'am, Professor of the Department of Education of Dibrugarh University, for her valuable presentation. Hope all participants have been benefited from the effective presentation and deliberation of ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. I also would like to thank our Vice Principal, sir, Mr. Dulal Burua, for his constant support and cooperation. I thank all the faculty members of the Department of Education for their sincere effort to make the webinar successful. I also thank the teacher members of the IQAC of Women's College, Tinsukia, Dr. Tanushree Sarkar ma'am, Mr. Devashish Fukan sir, Mr. Kulak Bhattacharya, Mrs. Supriti Syam, and coordinator of the webinar, Rekhamani Burua ma'am, for their support and cooperation to make the webinars and other programs organized by the college. Thank you all. I especially thank Mr. Tapas Ais and Mr. Kulak Bhattacharya for their technical support to conduct the webinar smoothly. I thank all the faculty members and non-teaching staff of the college for their direct or indirect help for conduction of the webinar, especially Mrs. Suman Sahu of Political Science Department and Mrs. Piali Dasgupta of Sociology Department for their active help in observing the YouTube live streaming of the webinar. Last but not least, I thank all our esteemed participants and their students, without the presence of whom it had not been possible for us to make it successful. Hope your presence will inspire in our future programs also. Thank you all. Over to the co-coordinator, Dr. Nobonita Deka.
Thank you, Dr. Das, for such beautiful words. Thanks for your help and active support. Actually, we have arrived at the concluding part of our webinar, but here I would like to share two important things with our participants. First, the feedback link has already been given in Zoom and in YouTube link. I request you so that you get your certificate without any mistake. And secondly, don't leave the WhatsApp group created for this webinar till you get the certificate, because certificates will be provided through this WhatsApp group only. And though our formal webinar proceeding will be concluded soon, but after that also 15 minutes additional time will be given to you. That means our links will remain open for 15 minutes so that you can fill up your feedback form. So before signing off, I would like to thank once again our principal sir, our resource person Nita Baideo, our vice principal, our IQAC coordinator, our participants, and each and every member of Women's College family for their cooperation and participation to make this webinar a successful one. Department of Education of our college, being a department dedicated for the well-being of our teacher and students, strongly believe that during this challenging time, our efforts should not only be dedicated to fight against Corona, but also to keep our spirit high to have a healthy and mindful life. With this objective, we organized this webinar today. Hope this webinar has been able to fulfill its objectives to a great extent. With these words, I would like to wind up today's webinar. Bye-bye.
So I would also like to say thank you for inviting me for today's webinar. It was a pleasure for me, honestly, and very glad to see that there has been so much participation and interaction. These are the things that keep us motivated. So I hope Tinsukia College, Women's College will continue to do the good work it's doing and create awareness in the future about the need to understand these psychosocial concerns, especially in the post-pandemic world. So wish you all the best in your journey ahead. Thank you so much for having me over today. Good night.
Thank you, Vaidu. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye. And participants, we will keep our YouTube and Zoom link 15 minutes open so that you can fill up the feedback form. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night.
Bye.
Amonita?
Vaidu, মোৰ মাতটো শুনিলে না লাষ্টত?
একদম শুনিছো। তুমি নাযাবা ৰবা।
বাইদেউ মোৰ লাষ্টৰ খিনি শুনিলে নাই?
শুনিছো।
ধৰিব পৰা নাই, মই অডিঅ'টো অন কৰিছিলো। মই থ্যাঙ্কস
just wait
সব শুনিছো, সব ধুনিয়া শুনা গৈছে।
ৰেখা বাইদেউ মই লাষ্টৰ থ্যাঙ্কস দিয়াখিনি শুনিলে ন বুদুল দাসতক? থ্যাঙ্কস দিয়া শুনিলে বাইদেউ?
ওকে এতিয়া ক'ব পাৰে। শুনিছা স্যাৰ? বাইদেউ বৰ ধুনীয়া লাউড হৈছে। মই ৰেকৰ্ডিং হৈ আছিল যে কাটি ললো সেইকাৰণে।
লাষ্টৰ খিনি মোৰ শুনিছান নাই?
শুনিছো দেই নবন্তা বা খুব ধুনীয়া হৈছে।